A healthy lifestyle can be attained by eating healthily and maintaining a balanced diet that takes into consideration the essential nutrients required by the body to attain ideal body weight and reduce the risk of chronic lifestyle diseases such as diabetes. So what is really healthy eating, and how can we create a balanced diet that will assist the body to function optimally? We've invited Charlotte Jean, a nutritionist, to give us some of the answers to these questions. Charlotte has also penned a recipe book titled Why Good Food Matters. So Charlotte, welcome. Let's chat this chat. It's a wonderful one and always exciting. Good to have you with us again.
Thank you.
Now, let's explore the idea of healthy eating, or really healthy eating, if we can create that distinction, because I think there's so much information out there, and we think we have a sense of what is healthy eating, but what is it in your opinion?
You know, the interesting thing is that it hasn't changed. Over all these years, we've had strange and wonderful diets crop up and trends in health. But it's getting back to the basics of what a human being actually needs to function in terms of their macronutrients and their micronutrients, and also the way that we farm and we produce food. So we can't forget that the agricultural element is linked, you know, to the nutritional quality of our food.
Now, in terms of the information that we get, there's so much that is put out as official information. Like, I read an article the other day that said the White House's definition of a balanced plate is X, Y, and Z. So it comes from these sources that are supposedly credible or in a position of authority, but often they're not, because there's a hidden agenda behind them. So where do we source the best kind of information about what really is a healthy diet? Well,
you always look for people and historical evidence that indicates longevity in lives. So lots of research has been put together about cultures where there's a long life and basically no dread disease or lifestyle diseases. And then you have a look at those principles that are being practiced. And the interesting thing is that they are the same. So whether you're looking at the Mediterranean diet, the traditional Japanese diet, the Central European diet that's still traditional.
Yes.
They have the same kinds of principles that are practiced regardless of changes in technology or farming practices. So that's what you need to look at. What's working?
Yes.
The evidence-based approach, as opposed to the marketing or the brand or the kind of trend-based, you know, methods.
Let's go into that, because that's a very interesting one for me in terms of the idea of marketing and messaging around products. So you go into a supermarket and you see so many things that say superfood or low-fat, extra healthy, the healthy option, whatever it might be. What sort of, I want to ask the question almost of like, what credibility is there in that kind of messaging? I mean, a broccoli head is obviously healthy, but somebody who says this is the healthy option almost feels as if we should be taking a step back and saying, hang on, what are you really trying to tell me?
In South Africa, unfortunately, our food and our health market is not regulated. So everyone and their sort of Maltese poodle can actually have a message that they are sharing. The issue here is to step away from the hype. As soon as a message comes across as very compulsive, it's compelling you to say yes or to do something, then you know, wait, what are the facts? And also to remember that food is based on your own unique digestion, your own unique needs. So we actually have to come back to understanding ourselves, understanding our own physiology, not being afraid of biology and anatomy. I mean, gosh, this is the most expensive thing you're ever going to own, which is you. So get to know how it works. And be aware that, unfortunately, in the world that we're living now, everything is about selling. So just know that it's going to come with that mandate, and really filter the stuff through.
Absolutely. So one particular word that pops up, and it's become more of a thing in sort of health circles, is this idea of superfoods. Again, on a packet that says superfoods, is it really as good as it is, as sort of looks on the bag? Because to me, also, the minute you put it into a bag and it's been processed, what are you losing from the original? So how do you find that balance where something intrinsically is a superfood, but then when you buy it on a supermarket shelf, it maybe isn't as good for you as it says?
It's a very good point. When we look at superfoods, it was actually a branding term that kind of came out of a pseudoscience, that any plant that has a medicinal value that goes beyond the nutritive value, so the micro or macronutrient value of the plant, is termed a superfood. But that can sometimes mislead somebody. They can think, you know, I'm very, very sick. All I need to do is eat lots of maca or lots of cacao or lots of moringa. But in actual fact, that has to still form a part of a wise and intelligent diet. So it's just remembering that a lot of what we are exposed to is what they call pseudoscience.
Right.
So it's not real science. It's a trend which cottoned onto something that was discovered about that food, you know, maybe 50 years ago, maybe a year ago, maybe now. It's very positive that we're learning these things about these beautiful plants that surround us, but we've got to put them where they belong. They can't become our staple diet.
Yeah. And I'd like to go back now to the idea you said in terms of knowing your body, or potentially also listening to your body, or experiencing your body maybe is even better, in terms of the food that you put into it. So how come for one person one set of food is going to be absolutely ideal, but the exact same set of food for another person is going to be completely wrong? How do we find that balance? Is it through experimentation, testing, trial and error? What's the best philosophy there?
So Michael, I'm going to try and cut out all the pain for everyone, because I've gone through this myself.
Okay.
And you know, even in my studies, much emphasis was placed on the food pyramid, you know, so getting at the base maximum grains and then moving up sort of to the top of the food pyramid, which is oils and sugars. But that has been literally debunked because it doesn't apply in many cases, especially when you've got different stages of life, different energy requirements, different ages. So there's 3 tools that you can use to cut out the pain, because food trial and error really is painful.
And it's a long process as well.
Very long process, and it might change based on the food sourcing.
Right.
So the one is knowing your particular blood group and understanding how that then responds to stresses in your body, acids, and the way that you digest certain food groups like lectins, glutens, carbohydrates. That's extremely helpful. And there's a lot of research available freely on that. So how your blood group dictates and also informs the kinds of foods that are healing, neutral, or triggers.
Right.
Then there's something called genotypes. And genotypes are 6 categories of genetic profiles that basically define the world.
Okay.
Very much linked to your blood group, but also to where your ancestors came from.
Yes.
What types of foods they ate, the antibodies that you have already in your genes and your DNA.
Okay.
And then the third is understanding the difference between processed food, fresh food, organic food, commercially produced food. So the sourcing of your food.
Okay.
Because you can obviously be eating something that should be healthy, but because it's so full of pesticides, it's a possible poison or a toxin. So those are very helpful tools, and they don't cost anything. Just a bit of research, looking up online, knowing yourself.
Yes, yeah. Now, just on that blood type story, is it deeper than just saying I'm O negative or B positive or whatever the case may be? Is it a further analysis into the actual chemical makeup of your blood type?
Yes, it is. In fact, I found it was very interesting to go and look up what blood groups actually mean before I even linked them to foods.
Right.
So to go, and most people don't even know their own blood group. You know, I think that's semi-important, especially if you're in an accident.
Absolutely.
So to go and find out what your blood group is, if you are a negative or a positive part of that, and then what that means in terms of how your body functions, especially how it responds to stress. If you are highly sensitive to stress, or you are reactive, it means that your immune system is going to be under pressure a lot more.
Okay.
So then you're going to have more sensitivities to food, and you're probably going to have to be more aware of how you're eating, as opposed to having a far more neutral blood group.
Okay.
That then is linked to food groups. It's often referred to as the blood type diet.
Yes, I've heard.
I'm not trying to come and sell that here because I actually have nothing to do with it. But I found it very helpful for my clients who didn't want to go and have all of that allergy testing and spend a fortune and get pricked with so many needles.
Yes.
You know, so it's a very accurate way of already forecasting those foods are not going to be so great, those are going to be better. And then you can try yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
South African eating, because it's quite an interesting one. I mean, there's vleis, rice and aardappels, and there's pap and vleis and all of that sort of stuff, which is so sort of almost traditionally South African, and we live with it all the time. But the vegetables are sadly lacking. I think, again, people watching this show most likely are a little bit more informed around the balance of things. But what is these extreme diets? Because I think almost in a way they have similarities, where if you're going vegan or vegetarian, as with meat and potatoes, you're kind of excluding a lot of things. Where is the balance in sort of an exclusive type diet like vegetarianism or veganism or a paleo diet, or I've heard about the carnivore diet as well, which is very extreme. But can you really maintain good health and real healthy eating across the board in those different sort of diet types?
I would say most self-respecting nutritionists or anyone involved in food would say no, because there's bound to be a deficiency that creeps up, either in the beginning, sort of the first month, or after 3 to 6 months. And there was a book written entitled In Defense of the Omnivore.
Right.
And so if you look at a human being's mouth, just their teeth, and what their teeth were designed for, it was clearly fruit, vegetables, meat, grains, a bit of everything, mainly plants.
Right.
And I'm paraphrasing, a very famous quote.
Yeah.
So the thing with good health is to obviously know yourself, what you need, what your body responds well to. Some people, by virtue of their genes, will respond better to more plants over less meat. But no one's going to do well with only meat.
Yes.
Only plants. I don't know if you heard of fruitarians, but that's only fruit.
Yeah,
You've got to wait for it to drop from the tree.
It's quite extreme. It's a patient diet.
It's a patient diet. So it's really coming back to the balance of understanding how a human being was just adapted to their environments, the kinds of foods we should be eating. And to just get away from all the politics and the rhetoric surrounding food. In some countries, the argument is said that it's better for people just to grow plants because animals take up a lot of carbon and they eat a lot of grains. But then you have the issue of too many grains that are being grown that are just destroying normal forest lands and wetlands, and not enough protein for very poor communities. So no extreme is healthy.
Absolutely.
I think that's just a good principle to base it on.
Well, speaking of principles, let's dive into the book that you've created, or penned, as we said earlier. You speak about 8 principles in terms of principles of healthy eating. What are those principles and how can we kind of implement them in our lives, in short?
In short. So one really important principle is the 8-hour window of eating. So to try and make sure that the main meals that we're eating occur within 8 hours. If we don't have that, then we develop syndrome X.
Right, which is?
The metabolic syndrome.
Okay.
Too much insulin, your body doesn't receive the insulin. When you should be sleeping, you're still trying to digest a big main meal.
Right.
It's playing catch up the whole day because you missed your first meal. The second one is intermittent fasting.
Yes.
Because we really need to know how to just exercise some discipline, not be eating all the time.
All the time, yeah.
The third principle is choosing your main meals with a 6-hour window of eating between.
Okay.
So our stomachs are not concrete mixers. You shouldn't be having a meal now and then in 2 hours you're having another meal.
Right.
You first need to digest what you ate. And a full meal takes 4 to 6 hours to digest.
Okay.
So it's the principle of digestion.
Yeah.
Another principle is looking at fresh over processed food. So to eat the freshest version of the food that you could. Another principle is lightly steaming your food and kind of sort of gently sauteing it in a light oil as opposed to boiling and baking, because then you break down the essential integrity of the food and the nutrients.
Okay.
And then another principle that we say is really important is understanding how to listen to your own body and understand your genetic profile.
Right.
And it's not actually that difficult because you would have grown up with natural likings and aversions to food. No one had to tell you. No one has to tell a child what to pick out on their plate.
They figure that out straight away.
Yes, they do. And those things don't change. They're a very good picture of what your body is enjoying in terms of its fuel and what it is just saying, no, please, we don't need that. That's more of a toxin or an allergic substance.
Right. Just I want to touch on that idea of food that you actually you dislike for various reasons, and also food that you crave. I mean, is that, as you say, it's an indication that your body is lacking or needing something, or does not need something. So just this idea of being in touch with what's happening, which I think we're so overpowered by the marketing, the messaging, the extra sugar that makes us addicted to the food, all of these things. So just in closing, I think maybe, Charlotte, what is some key ideas that you think people need to take out there when they are looking for food, cooking food, and choosing their food to ensure that they stick to a semblance of a healthy diet and really healthy eating?
Yeah. First, it's knowing what foods to combine and what foods not to. So we shouldn't be mixing our meats with our fruits. We should understand that the body first digests sugars, then it digests your oils, and then it's digesting your proteins. So if you're mixing these elaborate meals and dishes with the wrong types of food, you're never going to be able to digest them, even if they were the right foods for you.
Okay.
They shouldn't be put together. So looking at food combinations. So how would I actually combine my foods in the best way for digestion?
Right.
Then also getting back to your body's own messaging. I've found with all of my clients, once they've done a cleanse and they've been off sugar and who knows else for at least a week, their palate is cleansed and they are more connected to their own intuitive inclinations.
Yes.
So then they'll say, you know what, I don't actually do well on chocolate. Maybe they were mad for it before and they were actually living off chocolate. Now they've had a cleanse and they're saying, I don't feel great when I eat it.
Very
I feel a bit wired, I get a bit of indigestion. So to first clean your body, and then you can start asking yourself, do I like that food? Do I feel nice when I eat it? And obviously if you're eating intentionally and you're not mixing all your foods together, you can tell what foods are responding well to you and you are responding well to, and those foods that are not, that are triggers. So I just keep saying, come back to knowing yourself. You know, your nutritionist or your dietitian are not going to know you better than you know you.
Definitely.
So just to reconnect with those messages that you're receiving from your body, you know, and to keep things very basic and very simple.
Wonderful. Charlotte, very interesting, because it's a very different take on what we usually hear about just generally healthy food. But fascinating, and so many good insights. So thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us.
Thank you.
Excellent.